Bam! MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I'm here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, taking a topic, deep diving, having a good time while doing it. And I, as usual, am trying to organize all these damn screens on my desk or on my monitor so I could pay attention to what's what. I was a little ambitious today, admittedly. I created a bunch of slides that I'm going to use for my presentation, and hopefully it's all going to go well. But if it doesn't, the saying is sometimes it be like that, right? So it's going to be what it's going to be. I have I think, a good topic. Again, let me be responsible. I have the housekeeping to take care of. So if you guys aren't getting my emails, go to masterchimletter.com and sign up. It's free. You get a free program. It's not for everybody. I tend to be a little bit brash and admittedly sometimes strategically vulgar. I try not to get caught up in the algorithmic filters of people's email boxes, but I could be a lot more aggressive and liberal with my positions through email. So masterchimletter.com, make sure you get that. It's free. I keep you guys up to date with what I'm doing, what events I got going on. Presently, I have the sprint going on in the morning. The guys and I are having a pretty good time with that. I enjoy doing it. The guys are giving me some great feedback. I've had to yell at a couple of guys already, as expected, but it's the pressure process, right? So it's all good. Aside from that, I think all the other relevant links are in the description. I'm busy, man. I'm doing a lot of shit right now, and I think at 51, I have a bunch of different missions planned for this year, and I'd say this year, more than ever, I've added a level of specificity to what exactly those plans are. And I don't want to get on too much of a tangent here, but the point being, and maybe this is something that could be said at any point throughout history, but man, life is good. Life is good. The opportunities and assets that we all have and wake up with, it's something that shouldn't be ignored. And I'm somebody that, sometimes I get people connected to my stuff that they catch me on a day where I'm sort of reflecting, or on a message where I'm reflecting and talking about the positive gratitude based approaches to life. But don't get it twisted. The people that don't have a gratitude for life are fucking soft, and they're weak, and they're ungrateful, and nobody's perfect. Everybody's working, everybody's climbing their ladder, but no matter where you are on the ladder, like, if you are not climbing, you got a fucking problem. It is the thing that is going to keep people on the path towards personal power. The other day I was listening to Anthony Robbins talk, right? He was getting interviewed, and I was reminiscing about the first time I was exposed to an Anthony Robbins program, and it was personal power. And this is like in the 90s. It had to be the 90s. And I remember how just weird it was for me that somebody was talking about these things in a way that they could be controlled. It would be years later, that I figured how to actually leverage some of these things into applying improvements in my own life. But now, when I say power, a lot of people, they're everything from selfishness to white power to any other derogatory thing, and we've convinced ourselves as a society that power isn't something that's good, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I don't want to be powerful. Well, what do you want to do? I want to help people. Well, if you're really powerful, you could help a lot of people. Yeah, but I don't want to be powerful. I want to enjoy life. I want to have fun. Well, you tend to be able to sort of set the criteria for your days the more powerful you are. Like, I can go on and on, but the idea of it is, A lot of men find themselves in a situation where, and this segues into what we're going to cover today, a situation where they've done so much to provide for so many, and they've lost sight of the priority or the foundation of that entire system, which is them, right? And we're going to get into that today. Today's topic is called the provider trap, and I've gone above and beyond trying to create slides for this. So, barring any technical difficulty, this should be a pretty fun ride. So here we go. Before we get into that, let me say what's up to everybody. What do we got here? We got my man Cap. What up? Good to see you, brother. Hope all is well. Aaron, what's up, darling? Good to see you. My man Jamie. Good to see you, brother, man. Prana asks, hey, how do you become mentally stable? Just watch my shows. Watch my shows. And if that doesn't do it, then watch them again. All right. All right. A little bit of this. Why not? Add a little spice to the conversation again. Hello, I am Benjamin Netanyahu. Please stop firing missiles at me. Right. I mean, on the cleverness scale, what do you guys think? About a 3 out of 10? If English isn't your first language and you're trying to be funny, then I commend the effort. But the bar is pretty high here, so step it up, Buttercup. All right, Cap says, always take inventory of what you have, and you'll find you have a lot to be grateful for. Absolutely. Cassettas, what's up, brother, man? How you doing? 2 on Tom. What's up, brother, man? Good to see you. Hope all is well. Jamie says, just watch my shows. Listen, I've been accused of a lot of things. Humble and patient. I've never been 2 of them, right? So with that being said, let's get it popping. So what do I got planned for today? So today we have a list. Holy shit. I got some graphics for you guys. I'm getting the t-shirts made. AI is my homeboy. So you guys better buy one when I put them out there. But it is absolutely my theme for 2026. I am going to be taking over the world using AI. Taking over the world, maybe it's just completely separating myself from the world using AI. To me, it's going to feel like the same thing. The world's going to disappear, but I'm still going to be around. Anyway, 7 ways the provider trap destroys powerful men. That is the list we're going over today. And there is some juice to this list. And I've gone, I went a little ham with how much I want to put on here because I don't want to miss any of the points that are a part of this presentation. Everything that I do is based, in terms of my content, is based on the pressure to power meta model. Everything is born of that system, that foundation, and using that foundation to apply its rules, its guidance, if you will, to different scenarios that men run into is where I find my content is most valuable. So this is never going to be a take specifically on this thing that doesn't align with my take on another thing. They all come back to the meta model, right? And all of the content that I produce here, just understand that that is always the context that I'm adding to the perspective that I'm sharing, right? So let's get to the next one. Defining the trap, right? So the provider trap, it's always good that we understand what the fuck we're talking about. And the provider trap is what happens when a man builds his entire identity around what he produces for other people and loses himself in the role. I think, you guys on the call right now, on the show watching, like, you absolutely can identify with this in some way, shape, or form. Because in all my years of coaching men, I've never found a man that hasn't experienced this to some extent. It's the cost of doing business when you're worth a shit, right? In order to be trapped, in the provider trap, the cost of entry is being a provider. That doesn't qualify. Not everybody's qualified to do that. So that being said, the man keeps showing up, he keeps performing, he keeps producing, but somewhere along the way, he stopped building anything for his own future. His will, right? His willpower runs on obligation. His mission's nowhere to be found. And his vision, any goal that he himself has had, has collapsed into maintaining his mode of productivity. Everyone around him, and everyone's a little over the top, right? But everyone around him eats because he produces. And the moment he slows down, the whole system suffers as a result. So that is the provider trap. Now I have a list, and let's get into it. So these are the ways that a man is affected by the provider trap, right? So number 7, and we're going to go down to 1 starting at 7. Number 7, you stopped building structure around your own life. You have routines for your kid's schedule, your wife's calendar, and your work deadlines, but nothing structured around your own growth. This is something that I see in men all the time. They find satisfaction, they find certainty, they find recognition by doing things for everybody. But what's not considered is the fact that they are a machine that is producing these outputs. And if that machine is not addressed primarily, with any degree of priority, when it collapses, everything's going to collapse around it. Every time you have to figure out what to do next, on the fly, you lose energy that you could have spent on actual progress. The exhaustion you feel at the end of the day is partly because your entire system was designed to carry other people, and nothing was designed to carry you. When a man has no structure for himself, even small decisions drain him because there are no defaults in place. Going to the gym, doing any reading, personal development, these always get cut first because they were never locked into the architecture to begin with. The word for what happens when a man runs a system built entirely for others with nothing built for himself is erosion. And for most people, it's already happening. Let's get to the next one. Number 6, you confuse provision with power. Paying the bills and keeping the lights on is a function, and functions can be replaced. Power, however, is your ability to set direction, shift conditions, and move the people around you towards something better. In the meta model, the line I have for external power, real power, is the ability the individual has to make the world respond. A man can provide a 6-figure income and still have zero influence over where his family is headed. When your only contribution is financial, you become a utility, and utilities get taken for granted the moment they stop performing. Your kids don't remember the mortgage payments. They remember whether you led them somewhere worth going. The gap between providing resources and providing leadership is where most men lose their families without a single argument ever being raised. Being a provider is not being a leader. If that were the case, then throughout history, slaves would have been in charge. There is something to be said for the role of leading a people toward a mission. Being the provider of the resources for the mission says nothing of what direction they're moving in. And when they build a relationship without you in that leadership role, you should not expect them to not see you, or you should not expect them to see you as a leader, and then your provider argument somehow change their mind. It's like, you're not the leader. Yeah, but I'm the one that provides everything. So what the fuck does that have to do with being a leader? We can't be confused when your family reacts that way if you've never taken a leadership role, right? You have a role to play, and that role transcends just being the guy that fills the fridge and pays the bills. Number 5, your will has no mission, so it turned into agitation. This will resonate with some people. That restless feeling at night when the house goes quiet isn't anxiety, it's energy with nowhere to go. You have an internal force, but you stopped aiming it at anything specific to your future a long time ago. In the force flow model, some of you guys may have been aware of, I think I went over it on one of these live streams. The will that you have is the tension internally that you felt to do something in motion. You wanted to do something. You had this idea of this goal, this vision, and you see yourself there. You see yourself in that after state of that vision being reality, and you want to make that trek from here to there. So that tension builds up to the point where you go, you know what, I'm going to do something about it, and you move. As soon as that tension starts moving, it becomes your will. But if you don't have that will aimed at anything geared towards you, how are you ever going to achieve anything that's going to give you the results that it provides? You will be absorbed by other people and their missions. When a man has drive but no clear target, he bounces between projects, ideas, distractions without finishing any of them. Let me know if any of this is resonating with you guys. Most men at this stage think they need a rest or a vacation. What they actually need is something worth committing to. I've said before that the people who design their whole life around the vacations that they get to take once or twice a year are living lives not worth living. You should not design a life that you have to schedule your escapes from in order to maintain any sort of coherent identity. The irritability that shows up around your wife and kids often comes from unused capacity, not overwork. You feel like, you're being forced to operate at a fraction of what you're capable of. And maybe that's never been the product of a conscious decision. Maybe you've never really articulated it that way in your head. But just the same, you feel that gap. You feel that nothing that you're doing is satisfying the capabilities that you know you have. A man without a mission doesn't lose his power. He wastes it in every direction at once until there's nothing left to give. Let's go to number 4. You isolated yourself from every man who could help. Oh man, this is a biggie. This is a biggie. The provider role taught you that needing help is the same as being weak, and that training is running your life right now. And that training is running your life right now. Understand that in the meta model, in TRIBALNOMICS, I position alliances and tribe on a larger scale as the force multiplier for the individual's identity. If you are strong as an individual, you are stronger with a support system that aligns with who you are as an individual. When pressure hits, your first move is to go quiet and handle it alone when you're suffering from the provider trap. And that pattern cuts you off from the exact people who could help. You have guys you watch the game with, but nobody in your life who could look you in the eye and tell you when you're falling short, tell you when you're fucking up. You have nobody in your life who has the balls to pressure you into solving those issues that you're just dragging along. You have nobody in your life you're willing to listen to allow them to pressure you into transcending the obstacle you've sort of built camp in front of and just refuse to go through. Isolation, then, disguised as toughness, is one of the fastest ways a man loses momentum without realizing it. Most men's groups are comfort collectives where everyone validates each other's excuses. And that's why you stop trusting the idea of brotherhood. It's one thing, and I've experienced this to some extent, where every effort that I've made to be strong, you have everybody talking about strength, talking about power, and everybody's supportive, but then you actually get stronger. You actually become more powerful. You actually start, developing some of these outcomes that you've invested in, that they were all supportive of, when you were looking to pursue it. But then suddenly you start developing it and the story changes. Suddenly everybody starts resenting you. Everybody starts, defending their own insecurities. And the next thing you know, the answer that you come up with is, well, it's not worth being around these people. And you wind up isolating yourself instead of obviously allowing these people to allow that arc of alliance to end and to find people that continue to pressure you and make you want to be more. Every man could find a circle of allies that's going to make him comfortable with being who he is. I would question the utility of friendship if that is what it could provide you. If the only thing your friends could do is make you feel good about who you are, well, don't you understand that the minute you have an instinct to become more, they're actually friction now. If you're hanging out with 10 guys that are all 400 pounds and you weigh 400 pounds, you fat fuck, and you say, I want to lose weight, what the fuck do you think these guys are going to tell you? At first, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's, good for you. You want to be healthy. Yeah, great. Me too. Yeah, I want to do that. But then you start dropping weight. You run into them. Now you weigh 350. They're still over 400. Next thing you know, you're the mirror that they don't want to look at. So they're telling you, are you sick? Are you all right? Like some people are just big boned. They start all the stories that make them feel good about themselves. But how does that land on you? It lands on you as friction, as resistance to pursuing the very mission that your friends are supposed to be helping you pursue, not getting in the way of. A man who can't let another man challenge him will keep making the same mistakes with nobody around strong enough to point them out. Just because you've been around weak people doesn't mean that you're better off by yourself. Because understand, when you're isolated, all these things that I've described here are going to happen, inevitably. Some people feel that they're growing, but what they don't see from the vantage point that they're in is that their world is actually just getting smaller. They see themselves as getting more powerful, but that's just respective to the size of the world that they're operating in. Their goals become smaller. Their circle of allies become weaker. There's no growth to be had in that type of design. Number 3, your identity runs on a borrowed code. The standards you measure yourself against were installed by your father, your culture, your first boss, or maybe it's the expectations of your wife. Most of them you never consciously chose. You feel like you're failing, but the measuring stick was never yours to begin with. Now understand, let me articulate this a little bit more so it's not laid down or picked up improperly. Honoring your culture, your parents, your ancestors, any other identity, group identity, is significant, but never at the expense of who you are. If you are willing to sacrifice your identity to comply with the expectations of the group, the paradox is that you will never be of any value to the group because you're not a real person. A borrowed code will keep a man stable right up until real pressure hits, and then it cracks because it was never built for him. You could pretend to be one of these things, part of this group, believe this thing, but when shit hits the fan, who you are is going to be there waiting for you. The easy analogy of this that I use is oftentimes in MMA, you'll see high-level wrestlers start fighting MMA and they start learning how to box. They could have been very high-level wrestlers, but they fall in love with punching people in the face. Almost every single time I've seen a high-level wrestler who now fancies himself a striker get popped, here comes the double leg right after they get popped. Because they're not a striker, they're a wrestler. That's who they are. And I commend them for looking to broaden their skill sets. But when it comes down to it, when you borrow the code from somebody else, just understand you can hold on to it so long as the friction or the pressure you're facing doesn't sort of pull it from your grasp. When a man doesn't know which of his values are actually his, he can't tell the difference between conviction and just a habit. The trap is that the borrowed code feels real because you've been running it for the last 20 fucking years. But just because you spent that time doesn't make it yours. Until you audit what you actually believe, separate from what you were told to believe, every decision you make is built on somebody else's foundation. You have to be true to yourself. It's like somebody literally pretending that they're strong, getting under, you know, 800 pounds on a squat rack, and then it's stapling them to the ground. Just because you say you're a thing doesn't mean when it matters, you're going to be able to produce as that thing. And all the while, you're ignoring developing who you are. Number two, you're performing strength according to a script that says don't show pressure. The script says provide, protect, and handle it, right? So think about the man, the provider, the textbook, I am going to do what I'm supposed to do as a man. Buried inside that same script is the instructions to never let anyone see you struggling. I coach men one-on-one in a group setting. Please understand when I tell you, I don't sit there and tolerate and suffer a man acting like a pussy, a man acting soft and emotional and wants to tell me about, the way I feel about this. Just understand, before I get into what this slide, represents, I'm not the fucking guy to give you a hug when shit gets tough. I'm not that guy. But understand, to sit there and act like there is no uncertainty, no anxiety, no stress that you're experiencing is just ignoring the metrics that you have to tell you to fix what's going on. It's like the lights on the dashboard of a car. If you don't pay attention, you're going to break down. The whole thing is, you cannot develop a persona that sort of feeds on catharsis, feeds on other people's compassion, because that's just comfort that you haven't earned. But when you need feedback or some investment from somebody else to get you moving again, well, that's as normal as it gets. When pressure shows up, you'll do things like lying to your wife, say everything's fine. You push more deeply into the program that you're running. Every time, though, when you hide what you're carrying, the distance between who you actually are and who everyone thinks you are gets wider. In my identity frame, I talk about the mask that people wear. And when they obligate themselves to a role, that role has a overlap and offset relationship with who they are. And the further away that role is from who they are, the heavier the mask they need to wear. Wear a mask heavy enough for a long enough time, and you're not going to be able to bear it. Something has to give. Either you have to take the mask off, or you just wind up dropping and not being able to proceed. That distance between is where marriages collapse, because she can feel the gap even when she can't name it. In a relationship, if you're somebody who is not being honest with what you're struggling with, a mistake that could be made is thinking that nobody notices. Maybe they can't articulate it, but to think that they don't notice that something's off with you is to just be delusional. The performance that you're doing was never asked for by the people around you. It was installed in you, and you kept running it because stopping it felt like failure. If you're there working 60 days a week and you see that nobody's grateful for it, well, who the fuck told you to work 60 days a week? Oh, well, I got to do my job. So then, is doing your job about gratitude? Well, no. Then why are you worried about people being grateful for you? Because that is something that I need to continue letting me know that this is what I should be doing. Oh, so you do require these people showing gratitude. So then maybe you should have communicated that before you started working 60 days a week, so everybody knew what was going on here. A man performing strength long enough eventually forgets what real strength feels like. And that's when the erosion becomes invisible to even him. You've been playing it off for so long that you forget what it's supposed to actually be. And the number one reason, or the number one way that the provider trap affects a man, you quit on yourself but kept showing up for everyone else. Holy fuck, have you been there before? I know I have. I sure as shit know I have. Many times over in my life. You go to work, you pay the bills, you coach the team, handle the list, and somewhere along the way, you stop building anything for your own future. The man who does everything for everyone else and nothing for himself isn't selfless. He's disappearing. Your drive is still there, but its entire allegiance shifted to maintaining what exists instead of building what could exist. You became strong at staying the same, powerful at standing still, and the world rewarded you for it because everyone around you benefits from your stability, from your consistency. The real question underneath all of it is what you're working toward actually what you want, or just what you were told you had to have in order to actually matter? The provider trap doesn't destroy men by taking things away. It destroys them by letting them believe that giving everything away to other people around them is the job they're supposed to do. The whole idea of what we're supposed to be doing as providers, please understand, even being the protector and provider for a tribe, at its foundation is there because of what it does for you. You are the foundation. You are the priority. If you fall apart, everything falls apart after you. Your identity is upstream from everything you do for everybody in your life. Please understand, I am married, father of 4 children. I coach martial arts students. I coach men in their lives, in their businesses, etc. Like, I want my guys to be good. I want my people to be good. But I should say no longer, probably a little more accurate. I no longer put them before me in a way that allows me or asks me, relies on me to sacrifice developing who I am just for the placation of their expectations. So I know a bunch of you guys have been commenting, and I was a little fired up going through those, but I think I put down what I wanted to. Hopefully you guys understood that. Big D, my little bro, what's going on? Brandon says tapped in. What's up, Brandon? Appreciate you, Justin. Jamie writes, people become so invested in the disputes of others, they forget about the one important side to take. It doesn't even exist, one's own side. Absolutely right. Will says, man, it's some good stuff. I appreciate it, Will. Good to see you. Aaron says, I think you mean 60 hours. So apparently I fucked that up somewhere. But as long as you understood what I meant, the communication was a success. What's up, 2 on Tom? Appreciate it, brother, man. So, this is something that, Aaron says, I said 60 days a week. That'd be difficult. Yeah, definitely 60 hours. 60 hours is hard enough. 60 days, I don't think I figured that one out yet. But, everything that I talk about in any of my content, with any degree of, insight or, authority, right? Because I speak with authority on some things. Whether I'm granted that authority is another thing. But anything that I speak about from that perspective is really coming from an experience that I had where I fucked it all up. There is nothing I consider myself qualified to control, build, manipulate, improve that I haven't completely destroyed in the past. I've done many things wrong. And over the years, I've had to figure out how to do them better. And I'll add to that, we're not perfect. We're not supposed to be people that get it right every time. And when you play it off like that's what you do, you got to understand everybody knows you're not. Everybody knows that you're just as flawed as they are. And when you have that experience where you're putting this stuff out and nobody's checking you on it, you cannot be so naive, so deluded, so isolated and arrogant to think that they just blanketly agree with you. It might be that they don't have the path to communicate anything to you. I've been there. I've pressured my closest allies to hold me accountable when they see me straying. And I know telling me about myself is not easy. So I try to meet them halfway when they do it. But without them, without the feedback I get from people that I trust, I would be fucking lost. I would be probably very powerful, but over nothing that mattered. When we connect ourselves through the right priority to the roles that we're proud of, the roles that we identify as being, we put ourselves in the best situation to fulfill that role. We don't want to be the guy that, makes everybody better and doesn't realize that in the process, we ignore the pressure to become better ourselves. And I'm being as straightforward and honest as I can on this, because I've never been somebody who's been so insecure that he has to play it off like he's perfect. Like, far from that. I take solace and comfort in knowing that I'm a fucking crusher. And when I want to do something, it gets done. So acknowledging any of my deficiencies is never a liability to me, because they're not going to be there forever. And me talking about them puts even more pressure on resolving them. I know a lot of great men who are so effective, so powerful at providing for their families. But a lot of these men, and these are conversations I've had with these men, they do so at the detriment of developing their own power. There are no martyrs to be had in a man who ignores his potential for the compliance to the roles that he has committed himself to. It's the guy who could have cured cancer who says, no, my wife and kids, they needed me to drive them around all day. And so the individual sacrifices this great power he was designed to develop and achieve for the feedback he gets from all these people in his life over his compliance to their expectations. It's like, I could have been somebody, but I decided to be exactly the person everybody told me to be. The percentage of a man developing who he is cannot be compared to the percentage of the expectations from others that he complies to. I want to be 99% of who I am, much more so than I want to comply to 99% of other people's expectations placed on me. Tuantan says, this talk hits home with me. Right on. Well, capable men, this is at the heart of what, challenges are in their lives. Tuantan writes, if we got it right all the time, we wouldn't need these types of talks. But this is a talk I need. Right on. I appreciate that. Sarah says, we have to make ourselves the priority. And I think, first of all, 100%. And why people a lot of times reject that premise is they think that means at the detriment of being able to provide for the people that we're supposed to provide for. And it's the exact opposite. It's the whole scenario of the masks falling down on the airplane when the cabin loses pressure. You can have an infant in your arms. You put the mask on yourself first. Because what's one way to make sure that baby dies? You pass out. Because you were trying to make sure the baby had the oxygen. It's such an easy, analogy to use, with this particular concept. It's like we've gotten to the point where we've become so addicted to the positive feedback from other people and the narcissism that is born from that relationship that we've actually convinced ourselves, like, no, we can't take care of ourselves. We got to take care of them. Because then we get all that feedback. Then we get all that status, maybe. Then we get our narcissism, fed, or our insecurities protected. It's just not the way a man was evolved to live. We have to be crushers first. And you can't do that if you've rejected the process that has you audit your insecurities on a regular basis. Michael, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. Jamie writes, an example of what I wrote previously is a player-owner disputes regarding who should get paid more, while it's the fan who ends up paying for either. None of these fans are choosing their own side. That's right. That's right. Often I'm made aware of what's going on in the world through a friend or through some happenstance where it's like, oh, what was that about? I didn't know the whole Iran thing, for an example, until somebody texted about it, in my text chains. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. And whenever somebody asks me, where do you think this is going? What do you think is going to happen? And it's like, it doesn't matter. And what I mean by that, if the world is going to be at war a year from now, what will we do? Become as physically, mentally, tribally, resourcefully powerful as we can. It's like, hey, 12 months from now, the Chinese guys are dropping in your yard with the parachutes, right? Fucking Red Dawn style. It's like you have 12 months to prepare. What are you going to do? But then it's AI takes over is a different scenario. In 12 months, AI, the Terminator, Skynet, all that shit happens. Like, well, we have 12 months. What do? We become as mentally, as physically, as tribally, as resourcefully, as skillfully powerful as we can. It's like, no matter what catastrophe is looming, the answer is the same. So at some point, I ask myself, just how much energy am I supposed to be investing in this when the response is usually pretty uniform? Be as powerful and as tribally connected a man as I could be. So even there, it is an example of priority. I'm not saying, knowing what's going on in the world is completely useless, but if there is a fucking priority list, it ain't nowhere near the top for you, motherfucker. James, what's up, James? James writes, every man should be on a path to becoming a better man every day. Absolutely. Because think about it. What the fuck is the alternative? Like, who would agree with an alternative? It's like, who's the guy that goes, you know what? I'm just going to fuck around today. Why? I'm just becoming too good of a man, and I think I'm being greedy. I'm thinking like I shouldn't be so arrogant in continuing to improve myself. Like, who the fuck says that? Nobody agrees with that. People might make stories to validate their insecurities and their inability to solve problems by saying shit like that. But everybody knows if you could be as powerful as you could be by pressing a button, you'd fucking mash that button all day long. So why don't people become as powerful as they could be? Because it's harder than pressing a fucking button. Guys got me fired up. I'm going to end it there. That was a good fucking talk. I appreciate you guys hanging out. This is one of those talks that super fucking personal to me. You know, all of this, all of this came, in my life at different points. And I found a way to navigate it by first and foremost acknowledging the work that needed to be done. It's a fucking rough go being perfect from day to day. And the people that pretend that they are, it's like, man, like as soon as you're done, like let's get after it. Because nobody, no matter who you are, nobody thinks you're perfect. Which means everybody knows that you got shit to work on like everybody else. Doesn't matter who you are. You could be a billionaire. You could be a professional athlete. You could be a famous actor. You could like whatever the top of industry high performer label you want to use, they have shit to work on. Which means at the heart of it, they're just like we are. We all got shit to do. I appreciate you guys. I'll be here next week. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.